The Federal and Velevin Hypermarket jointly present the Thoothukudi Marathon 2024 to raise awareness on drug abuse. The event is co-presented by Edison Cardio Care Center, Tiruchendur, powered by L. Anand Jewelry and St. Mother Teresa Engineering College, Thoothukudi.
Hello and welcome to the Federal. Anti-India sentiments, particularly among the masses, have been on the rise in our neighboring countries. People fighting for restoration of democracy in Myanmar are miffed with New Delhi for its continued support to military junta and not condemning the February 2021 coup. Much has been said and written about the India Out campaign that raged Maldives early this year. The discontentment against India in Nepal has never died down since the crippling economic blockade the Narendra Modi government had allegedly imposed on the landlocked neighbor in 2015. The list is long, ranging from Bhutan to Sri Lanka to Afghanistan. But what perhaps surprised the policymakers in New Delhi the most is the growing resentment against India in Bangladesh. India has a very warm and colorful, cordial relation with Sheikh Hasina's Awami League government. Not only that, even both the prime ministers share excellent rapport at the personal level. Considering such state of bilateral relations, the recent India Out campaign and anti-India slogans that were heard during massive anti-quota protests in Bangladesh should be very disconcerting for both the friendly regimes. To examine what went wrong for India in friendly Bangladesh, we have today with us two very prominent political commentators and geopolitical experts, Mr. Salim Samad from Dhaka and Subir Bhomik from Kolkata. So let's try and unravel the paradox. To begin with, let me ask Mr. Samad, why a large section of people in Bangladesh are not happy with India despite deepening of government to government ties? So, what went wrong?
Actually, this anti-Indian sentiment has in fact taken its root in 1972, that many of you are not taking into cognizance. I'm talking about Delhi and the people in India. Everybody is talking about the later government of the two military generals and of course the Khaladas here. They have not sown the seed. The seed has been sown in 1972, and this is one of the reasons that Sheikh Mujibur Rahman wanted to get the Indian troops back to India, those deployed in Bangladesh for the liberation of Bangladesh. So 72. Since then, India had been instrumental in, of course, helping Bangladesh for the war-ravaged country. Obviously, I don't know why it happened. The textile which came from India was very of poor quality, very very poor quality. This is admitted by the government itself. All the material that was exported, even the note, the bank note, was printed in India. Within few months, even it's wet, especially the sweating, the note issue was tampered. So these all had, this all sentiment had accumulated, and of course, India was blamed during after the war that India has looted everything from Bangladesh. The question is, what was left in Bangladesh 1971, this war-ravaged country? Pakistan already had totally destroyed the country. So again, and you will very interestingly, several military generals, later on they became generals or maybe brigadiers who have retired and written books about Bangladesh war. You'll find this looting and whatever has been mentioned in some of the books. I'm not going into that issue, but let us talk about what is happening now. Now, for the last 15 years of Sheikh Hasina's regime, if you're talking about export, if you're talking about bilateral trade, you will find a very sad statistics between these two countries. If you're looking into the border management, of course, this is another issue because often in the Bangladesh press, you find that BSF, the Border Security Force of India, is killing citizens of Bangladesh. So this is one, and of course, I hope you will also dwell into some of the issues of the water sharing. So this and of course If you're talking about that Bangladesh itself, geopolitically, when you're talking about Bangladesh, Bangladesh was actually born in 1905. If you believe it, it's fine. If you don't believe it, I mean, you're going to deny it. The Bengal divide was in 1905 by the British, of course. So it was at that time it was named as East Bengal, and if you find that East Bengal was created on the basis of the Muslim majority region, and of course West Bengal, of course, is a Hindu majority or less Muslims are on that side. So if you look into 1947, when this part became the eastern province of Pakistan, the same map, the same that 1905 map that became the eastern province of Pakistan. In 1971, it's a similar thing. It is the same map. So you can see that again, if you look into Bangladesh, it was actually a Muslim majority Bangladesh. That Delhi has never understood that there will be trouble because India has in fact has now two wings of Pakistan, literally. So they have Bangladesh, which is a Muslim majority, a Sunni Muslim majority, which are supposed to be very radical, not like the other Muslim sect who are tolerant, but Sunni Muslims are very aggressive, and they believe they all the conspiracy theories that India is killing our people, India is taking away everything, India is sending all the products. For example, like India, Bangladesh exports only $2 billion. I mean, last fiscal year, whereas export from India to Bangladesh has risen up to $16 billion. So you can imagine the trade gap. That
Trade
also
deficit.
has irked, the trade deficit has irked the business community. Okay, now let me not go into the other details. If you're talking about trade, Bangladesh, India, of course, Delhi asked Bangladesh, what are you going to export to India? You have nothing to export. Okay, they have been requesting for the last 50 years. I mean, if you're not talking of 50 years, let's take out over last 30 years. The business community, especially the India Bangladesh Chamber of Commerce, and of course the Federation of Chamber of Commerce, they have been writing documents after documents sending to India, especially with Delhi when Bangladesh and Delhi trade talks are on the move, whether it's Dhaka or Delhi, Dhaka, wherever the meeting is, they find huge documents of trying to prove that if Northeast India is open to Bangladesh, this traders or industrialists, they can do a lot of business there. And if Sobir Bomik will have shown me in Agartala that most of the products, even the matchbox, is made in Bangladesh. The Coke is also produced in Bangladesh. It's sold in Agartala. So you can imagine that these are all informal trade. Let's not use the word smuggling. So the huge I mean, it's more than, I mean, there was a calculation. It says the 4.5 billion dollars are smuggled into India. I mean, even the toothpaste. There is a market in Agartala which is called the Bangladesh market, Bangladesh Bazaar. And you'll find in Bangladesh Bazaar a television is being sold, made in Bangladesh. I mean, there's nothing to do. So there is a market. So that market has never been open.
You are essentially saying that there is huge trade deficit. So why is it so? Is it because of tariff barriers that India is imposing, then anti dumping duties which are being
That
imposed on goods like jute?
You're very right. Anti-dumping that has been negotiated, and lot of that's one of the reasons that some export statistics has risen. But I'm talking about Northeast India. If you give the Northeast India, because the Marwadis or whoever is dominating Indian business, they don't care about Northeast India. They even don't know that Northeast India exists, and they don't care about it. What is supposed to do? Why did you give the market, open the doors for Bangladesh to in Northeast India? I know there are some sentiments again about Bangladesh, Bengali Khadao Andolan. That is a different issue. But there should be a trade. And if you look into other issues, Bangladesh doesn't have a direct, communication like transport, or if it's connectivity. If you look into connectivity, there is only connectivity with Agartala. So there is a bus, you can go by train, I mean the other facilities. But there's no other. You cannot go to Guwahati, you cannot go to Shillong. There's no connectivity, direct connectivity. So this has to be. That there are many MOUs has been signed. That both the side has come for trade. This connectivity, blah blah blah. Anything never occurred. Last 1st of July, give me last example. On 1st of July, an Indigo flight was supposed to resume from, start from Guwahati to Dhaka. This has never happened. It was a promise, and there was a flight. Agartala to Chittagong, there was another flight was promised. It never happened. So you can understand, Delhi is not interested in Bangladesh and Northeast India, but already many industrialists has started to construct factories in Agartala. Subir is much better to talk about that. Those factories has never given permission. So the construction was held. So you can understand the sentiment that the Bangladesh is exporting $2 billion and India is exporting $16 billion.
Okay,
of course,
okay,
India is
I got your point. Yeah. So I got your point. So I'm coming to Mr. Bhomik. How do you evaluate the slew of agreements which both the countries signed during Hasina's regime, 15 years long regime? Are they one-sided? Are they too pro-India? What is your take on this, Mr. Bhomik?
See, I will argue that nation states, come closer to each other, not because, some leader likes the face of the other leader. They come close to each other, specifically on the basis of interests. And India has always tried to have a friendly country in what is today Bangladesh. My good friend Salim, very dear friend, might get into huge trouble because he has indirectly suggested that Lord Curzon is the father of Bangladesh and nobody else, because this whole thing called Bangladesh originated in 1905. There is a logic in it, actually. But what I'm trying to say here is that India has tried to get some of its own interests sorted out, and it serves India right if they have a friendly regime there. Coastal shipping agreement, transit agreement, the handing over of Mongla port to India. These agreements have all served India's interests. On the other hand, Salim actually has a point that something that Bangladesh has really looked forward to, for whatever reason, like the river water sharing. Ganges water sharing was signed when India was ruled by the Third Front government. Devagowda was prime minister. I very closely monitored the whole thing. Jyoti Basu played a very major role in pushing through that agreement. But somehow, with somebody else in the seat in Calcutta, the Teesta water sharing agreement has gone nowhere, which is why Bangladesh had to look towards China. And then, of course, the Indians get upset that, why should something as sensitive as river water sharing, why China should get involved. So what I'm trying to say is there is a very strong perception, and with some justification, that during the regime of Sheikh Hasina, and which has been long now, nearly, she's into her 4th term, that Indian interest has been more than well served. Bangladesh's interest has been less than well served. Actually, that's not totally true, because India helped solve the CHT problem when Hasina first came to power in 1996. And the Ganges water sharing treaty was also signed at that point of time. So actually, Bangladesh got more out of a Third Front government in Delhi when Hasina first came to power in 1996, and have got less out of a strong, so-called strong government in Delhi, in the last couple of years. So there is a plus and a minus. But the real issue now, you're talking of anti-Indian sentiment. The feeling here is, amongst a lot of Bangladeshis, and I'll say that pretty straight, is that if India has a practicing functional democracy where elections take place properly, where parties change, power, different parties come to power at different point of time, why should India back a government which has effectively throttled democracy? That's the perception. I'm not getting into the plus and minus, but that's the perception that Sheikh Hasina, first time she came to power in 96, fair election, 2008-9, again fair elections. But the last 2-3 elections in Bangladesh have been very controversial, and we know why. And I don't want to elaborate that. Salim, my good friend, will know exactly the details. I mean, we have a lot of friends in Bangladesh who will tell you that up to 3 o'clock in the evening, 33 votes were cast in a station, polling station with 600 sort of voters, and suddenly within an hour you find 550 votes have been cast. So we all know how these things happen. We covered Bangladesh long enough. The point is, the feeling in Bangladesh, and a lot of my friends very clearly say that you are falling into the American trap. The Americans practice democracy at home, and they have backed all kinds of authoritarian regimes elsewhere for their own distinct interests. India is falling into the same trap. Because your interests are served by the Sheikh Hasina government, you are backing a government which has throttled democracy. And this, mind you, Samir, has affected Awami League the most. The Awami League, because everyone knows the result of the election, so the Awami League has less incentive in putting up good candidates who connect to the grassroots. And they put up people who have bribed their way through to nominations. And I don't want to elaborate, but I have enough details on that. So today, the Awami League, they may be in power, but as a party, their position is somewhat like the Congress prior to their defeat in 2012. Is that they have lost kind of mass connect, and they are not the kind of party with the kind of mass connect they had in the 1990s. We have seen Awami League in opposition as an opposition party, the fantastic mass connect. They don't have it anymore because those leaders are history. People like Amir Hossain Amu, their history, they could just hear what is going on in Kushtia and ring two numbers and mobilize people. They can't do it anymore. So why? Because they don't have an incentive to put up good candidates. And this lack of democracy has affected Awami League the most. This is a strident argument I'll make. I'm not getting into the opposition. But the feeling in Bangladesh is, you guys have a proper functional democracy back home. Why the hell are you, just for the sake of your own limited interest, backing a regime which has throttled democracy in this country? And the way the present crisis... Sorry?
Basically, you are saying India is burning its finger by backing a very unpopular regime. So, Mr. Bhowmik, do you think India has an alternative? Do you think India has any other choice in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, other than Awami League?
Well, this is the binary that has upset people in Delhi, that if they tried the other option. In 2001, we all know for a fact that India was comfortable with BNP Jamaat Islami coming to power. But certain things happened after that, like the Chittagong, 11 truck arms seizure in Chittagong, port city of Chittagong, and many such things, which rattled Delhi, and Delhi came to believe that only Sheikh Hasina and Awami League can take care of its interests. Point is, this is Delhi's point of view. Okay, this is the Indian interest, the Indian national interest. Fact is, from a purely Bangladeshi point of view, and I can, because I'm an Agartala boy, we know Bangladesh better than anybody in India. I can make that claim. Salim will agree with that. I can see the Bangladeshi point of view. For your interest's sake, you are backing somebody here who is throttling democracy. Now, I don't want to get into the debate whether the democracy has been throttled or not, but people in Bangladesh exactly know what has happened in their country, and they feel a certain way, and I think they have every right to feel the way they do feel. Now, look at this present agitation. Let's come down to this specific turmoil at the moment, which has given rise to slogans like Bharat Jade Mama Badi Bangla Chhado Taratari, Bharat jiska mama ka ghar hai wo jaldi Bangladesh chhod ke bhag jao. That kind of thing. Why? Because here was a case 2018 due to the student agitation, the quota system was taken away. Then some people went to court and a court judgment came reinstating the quota. What Sheikh Hasina's government could have easily done is, we have taken a stand on this issue. Now the present complexity has been created not because of us or a decision or an executive order by my government. What has happened is that the court has given a judgment. We'll appeal against it and wait till that judgment comes. Without doing that, some people were branded, Some people were called Razakar. I mean, these boys were not even born in 71. Razakar, come on. And Razakar is a bad word, like Paki is a bad word in England. So, and this upset the students. Now, the point is, today the Awami League will tell you that this movement, student movement, is no longer a student movement. Opposition is trying to take advantage. They've infiltrated. Opposition everywhere will try to fish in troubled waters. You can't blame them. If Awami League was in power, they would take advantage of a volatile issue like this. In India, when the farmers' agitation is there, Congress in opposition, do you mean to say they have not taken advantage? So this is the point is you have given, by your arrogance of power, you have allowed a non-issue to become an issue. This is misgovernance, this is mishandling, and now you are, floating all kinds of conspiracy theory. You are shutting down internet, you are bringing army to the streets, and I can tell you the army, everybody is not very happy. So, you know what? Now, here is a case where people will say, and I get this very often from very senior people, even in Army, Dada ekটু বলেন না দিল্লিকে একটু বুঝাইতে আপাকে বুঝাইতে. So why don't you guys tell Delhi to use their influence on Sheikh Hasina, who is called Apa, meaning elder sister, that she should go on the right track. The point here is the people feel that you back this government. You also it is incumbent on you to ensure that they don't go on the wrong track. They don't do things like shooting students and stuff like that. So here, I mean, I don't buy many of these wild theories that 100 raw agents are running around in Dhaka with pistols in their hand. And there is another thing. All these opposition people, Sheikh Hasina is backed by India. China also backs Sheikh Hasina. Have they said India, like India out? Have they said China out? Why not? So they are okay with China. They're okay with China backing Sheikh Hasina. Russia backing Sheikh Hasina. There's a problem when India backs Sheikh Hasina. So opposition also has double standards. And therefore, I'm not buying into these wild theories that 100 raw agents are running around shooting people. All kinds of things have been floating around because I monitor the Bangladesh Netscape quite closely. But the fact is...
I'd like to interrupt and come to Mr. Samad. Samad bhai, so how much of this antagonism against India is also, due to growth of Islamist forces in Bangladesh?
I don't buy this theory about Islamist at all.
Even I
absolutely. The Islamist vote is only for the Islamist vote is only 4%. So you can imagine that the 4%, you cannot control the 4%.
Right. He's right.
Okay. Now, coming to an issue that Shubir had mentioned before about the water sharing. Just 1 minute. That there are 56 rivers, which is international rivers, which is coming from India to Bangladesh. And except only 2 rivers are going from Bangladesh to one in Mizoram and another in Tripura. So that is not an issue. Why are we talking about only one river called Padma? Why are we talking about one river? Why it is one-to-one river? That river sharing agreement that has to be done. Let me remind you. Bangladesh has done a lot of homework. In 1960, Nehru and Liaquat, they made a Indus River water sharing, and all the tributaries and everything was signed in one agreement. So if you can sign everything with India for Pakistan, why are you not doing it with Bangladesh? Why all the rivers are not taken on board? 52 years is long story, long history. You can.
That's a very valid point made by Salim.
So you do not. Actually, Delhi is not interested because this water will never harm Delhi. This water is not going to Delhi, so they are not bothered. So the people in this region, they will suffer, and of course they will have to take the brunt. This is one issue about the water sharing. If we another that Shubir had been already mentioned. If you're talking about why the people in Bangladesh are antagonistic, one is that India is not with weapons in come to the streets of Dhaka. I don't buy. These are all conspiracy theories. But let me tell you, but India is directly interfering into the Bangladesh government's. If you do not believe me, read the book of Pranab Mukherjee, The Coalition Years. He has written a chapter a chapter on how India had helped Sheikh Hasina to come re-elected or come to power in 2008 election. So this is a naked deal. So you cannot prove that no, Pranab Mukherjee doesn't know anything. He was a he was at that time the I mean later on he became the
Defense
president.
minister.
And okay, he was a whatever minister. Then if you
He
come
was
into
defense
another
minister.
book,
He met General Moin.
I mean, no, another book, which is of course there is has been read by many. Avinash Paliwal, he has written a book on India's nearest new history, where he writes a huge chapter, pages after pages, how India was standby. The 2,000 paratroopers were on standby after the 2008 BDR mutiny. I mean, once 2009, 2009 there was a BDR mutiny, and of course, everybody knows that 2,000 paratroopers were standby in two air bases to come to Dhaka, and they all designed, and it is on now. It is in a book. So there is an interference. Bangladesh troops are never going to India or Northeast India to help to get somebody liberated or saving a government. So these few things is not a few things. This is very much, I would say, has created a very strong sentiment. And if you look into the Awami League itself, majority of the Awami League leaders are anti-Indian. So why are you blaming the Islamists? Why are you blaming Bangladesh Nationalist Party? Why are you blaming them? I mean, this is not the time. There are several recordings. Recordings means video recordings of them speaking in local tamasha parties that they have in their constituencies, where they have spoken about the India. They are talking about the border smuggling. They are talking about this BSF killing Bangladeshi nationals. So these have created lot of nuisance value by the Awami League itself. So these are being some of the things has been picked up by India, by BNP and Jamaat. Jamaat has possibly not officially has never mentioned about the anti-Indian hatred officially. No record, no documents, no books, no nothing. Even the newspaper doesn't write. That is their Jamaat will definitely support somebody who is anti-Indian. But again, Bangladesh Jamaat was banned not because it is Jamaat Islami. Jamaat has been in the Supreme Court in the November 2023 election, before the election, Supreme Court. Why? Because Jamaat Islam is an affiliate of the Indian Jamaat Islami. That has been mentioned in the Supreme Court document. So you can see. So why would the Jamaat Islami speak nonsense about India when their parent organization is in India and also in Pakistan? So they have strong linkage between the mother organization of in India as well as in Pakistan. Pakistan, you know very well, they have been routed out in the last election, so they are nowhere. So the same thing has happened in Bangladesh. The voters turnout since they participated in election, not in the 1970, but if you're talking about the since Khaleda Zia came into power, all the election Jamaat Islami got only 4% vote. So why are you afraid of them? Talking about the minority, a minority is an insect in NNA. So this is the few things that has to be taken care of.
Okay, so we know Prime Minister Hasina's visit to Beijing earlier this month did not go very well. She had to return abruptly, cutting short her trip. Many say this was because China did not take very sportingly her pro-India tilt. So, against this backdrop, will the Chinese pressure and on top of that, her increasing domestic compulsion not to be seen as too friendly to India. So, will this lead to rethinking in her approach vis-a-vis New Delhi? Do you think Hasina can now, start playing hardball to India?
Okay, I will quote from Shubir Bhomi's article, but later on. China is very disturbed because because of Tista water sharing, I mean, the delayed in water sharing. So the Chinese offered a project that they can do a water management to help the farmers on the whatever the irrigation in the downstream of in the Tista. So we have Tista in our side. So this project was suddenly been scrapped. The Chinese project was scrapped. They have already spent, I don't know how many millions of dollars they have spent, but they have spent a significant amount. That has been scrapped, and their project was now given to India. Before he went to China, he mentioned in a press conference that they have decided to have India in that water management project. So this is number one. So the why China is very angry. China's anger will is not it is not holistic. If you're talking about only another issue is the Mongla port, which is not very far from Satkhira and Khulna, in fact. So you can imagine at the border, the Bangladesh has already signed an MOU with China that this Mongla port development will be given to China. So this was an agreement with Bangladesh. Suddenly, Bangladesh has decided that no, the port will development will be given to India. So obviously, you can understand that China is, of course, this is not a $1 billion project. So China is not bothered. China's as a trading partner is again there's a deficit, huge deficit, because China has import to Bangladesh, especially in textile machineries, for sure. Like machineries, textile machineries is huge. But let's talk about the other issues of China. China has already given China's military relation, like getting into Bangladesh. You'll find the Air Force has Chinese plane, the Navy has their submarine. You name so it is Chinese. So China has a bigger market in the military, especially in selling weapons. So China will not be very angry with Sheikh Hasina. Maybe with two or one projects that has been given to India instead of China. So other than that, China has a huge stake. If you took a look into the other mega projects that Hasina has already planned and started executing, these are all Chinese projects. Of course, with Chinese funding. So you can China will never get out of will not be so angry that they will stop supporting Sheikh Hasina. And of course, if you as Shubir was telling few minutes before about the recent student the protest and the violence, that China was the first country to say this is an internal affairs of Bangladesh. And don't think that China has said the same thing. India has also on the same day also said that this is a Bangladesh internal affair. So why do you say this is internal affair? People from Bangladesh, all the Indian students who were studying, few thousand, 7,000, they all fled from Bangladesh. So this is still an internal affairs. Why did you open the border? Why did you have a special flight for them? Why did you make this several borders like Agartala and other Gedi borders to open to make sure that Indian students leave, or Indians who are working in Bangladesh were non-essential, the family members. So you cannot say this is an internal affairs of Bangladesh. And I don't want to further on quote from Shubir. So Shubir had, in fact, several months before the election, he had mentioned that how India was planning to manipulate this election. Number one. Number two, you have the whole world is seeing, even the people of Bangladesh, the media, they have seen that how this election was conducted, a sham election was conducted by Sheikh Hasina, a voterless election. India had said everything is fine with them. So as Subir has said, and I totally agree with him, and I totally support his idea views, that India, Delhi is supporting or backing a government which doesn't have a legitimacy.
So, one last question to Mr. Bhomik. Mr. Bhomik, what is your take, particularly in the wake of Sheikh Hasina's abrupt return from China? Are these going to affect somehow India, her relationship with India? Will she be more cautious now towards dealing with India?
I will go with Salim on this that China may feel a bit upset here and there, but broadly speaking, they will stand by Sheikh Hasina because they think Sheikh Hasina is anti US. The US is trying to bring her down. This is Chinese perception and not very differently seen in Delhi as well, though we have better relations with US than China has. So the feeling in China definitely is, well, she has to balance the two and maybe they won't give her the kind of money that she has been looking for. They have other issues as well. Project implementation, the Chinese wants their funds to be properly utilized, so they want corruption down. They won't say it as openly as the World Bank guys have done it, but here there are a few other issues. But I don't think China is just going to dump Sheikh Hasina and say, oh, well, we don't know. This is an internal affair, elections. And no, they want Sheikh Hasina in power as much as India does. And Bangladesh and Sheikh Hasina is one issue that somehow, brings India and China close together. One of the very few issues on which the Indians and the Chinese see eye to eye that, she has to stay, the Awami League has to stay. Otherwise, the Americans will have their way and this place, and especially with the kind of turmoil in Myanmar, where, the West has played its own games. The Chinese have reason to worry because the Chinese don't want any disturbance in areas which are their outlet to the sea. Now, Pakistan is their outlet to the Arabian Sea. Myanmar and to an extent Bangladesh, because it has borders with that area, Rakhine State, these are their outlet to the sea. They don't want any major trouble, any major destabilization in these areas which form their arterial access to the ocean, because China's biggest problem is what? Biggest problem is there's a huge country, huge economy, huge military, very small coastline focused on East Asia. And therefore they need land to say access through friendly countries like Myanmar, like Pakistan, like Cambodia. And Bangladesh falls in that. If somewhere the Americans find a base in Bangladesh and they create trouble with Chinese access to sea through Myanmar, that's something the Chinese won't want. So they may be sort of, oh, well, you are going too close to India on that. One odd issue, maybe they'll send a signal here or there that instead of 5 million, I give you 2 million to send you a signal. But I don't think, I'll go with Salim on this, that China has no great reasons to be upset with Sheikh Hasina and will broadly back her. And, the similarity of approach between China and India, you can see from the statement, this is an internal affair of Bangladesh. And for China, again, there are questions raised about India because India is a democracy. China is not a democracy. So, what it does to suppress dissent, we all know Tiananmen Square. So, if something like that happens in Bangladesh, I don't think the Chinese are going to be terribly worried or bothered about it. So, India, well, Indian government may not, but you have seen demonstrations in India. In Calcutta itself, before the Bangladesh Deputy High Commission, in other parts of India, strong demonstrations, substantially, sort of supported demonstrations against the student crackdown in Bangladesh. So these things will happen in India, not in China. China, average Chinese people hardly bother. They don't have an influence on their leaders anyway. So I don't think the Chinese are going to feel very upset about the one-odd project going to India, Mongla or Teesta, and they will dump Sheikh Hasina. They'll broadly go with Sheikh Hasina. But I will also tell you something. If Sheikh Hasina were not to be the Prime Minister and Awami League were not to be the ruling party tomorrow, Chinese are very transactional. They will try to develop relation with somebody who comes in their place and not suffer from the hang-ups of Bainji and Hamara Purana Dost and all that stuff that India does suffer from. The Chinese don't have that hang-up. They're transactional. They'll say, okay, new government has come, we'll deal with them. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
The Federal and Relevant Hypermarket jointly present the Thoothukudi Marathon 2024 to raise awareness on drug abuse. The event is co-presented by Edison Cardio Care Center, Tiruchendur, powered by L. Anand Jewelry and Saint Mother Teresa Engineering College, Thoothukudi.